create content that inspires you? Talent that is simply too dope to describe? Welcome to Fahrenheit TV.
Fahrenheit TV.
Fahrenheit TV is a live monthly variety show that showcases people's greatness through narratives and artistic expression.
We're back with a brand new season of content that will uplift your soul.
Tune into our live episodes here on BNN TV or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be sure to follow us on social media to keep up with all our latest news. We hope that you'll tune in.
Hi Fahrenheit TV, and welcome to another episode. I am your host and producer Farah June, and I am so excited to be back for another first summer 2020 episode. I hope you are well and that you are finding peace and that your family and friends are healthy. I know that it's been 3 months of quarantine. We are also in another pandemic for social justice. It's been a lot. There's been a lot going on these past few weeks and these past few months. But I hope that despite all of that, you are taking care of yourself, that you're trying to find moments of joy, that you're connecting with your peers, your family, your friends, you're staying informed, educated, and that you're taking care of yourself. This month is also Pride Month, and so this episode, I really wanted to make sure that I honor that because I love Pride Month. I do miss going to the parades and the different events and the balls. Oh man, I've been watching Pose on Netflix. Thank God for Netflix. Catching up on Pose and trying to learn some of my voguing moves and stuff. And also learning more about LGBTQ history and learning more about leaders and some of the leaders we are so lucky to have here in our city, in Boston. And one of them I have on my show today, who is a phenomenal artist. I have looked up to her for a long time now and really love her work and her swag and her attitude. We have Merci D, Mercedes, on our show this month, and she's going to be talking a little bit more about her work as a musical artist, as a recent 2020 grad. And she's going to be talking about what social justice looks like through her lens. Also, we're talking about what Pride Month means to her. So it's an amazing episode. I do want to tell you guys that I noticed I did this interview and it was so perfect. It was like, I was so into it. And I love when I get into interviews like that where I'm so into it. I'm so like, oh man, this is so interesting and I want to learn more about the person or the topics that they're talking about. And what I tend to do is I tend to lean in. Like when I was at the studio, because now we're doing virtual episodes because the studio is still closed because of COVID-19. When I was at the studio, whenever I had a guest in front of me and they, I'm into something, naturally, I do this too, even when I'm with friends and family. I lean in because I just want to be I want to hear more. I'm just so interested. But in this interview, you'll kind of see me leaning in, but then it kind of cuts off. It just looks like I have a floating head. So I just wanted to give you that, I guess, warning that I'm fully clothed, as you can see. I have clothes on even when I stand up. Look, I got shorts on. Most importantly, as long as my guest looks and feels great, that's all that really matters to me. You guys seen me. You know how I look. But anyways, just wanted to give you that side note. But please tune into this in-depth interview with Merci D. She is an incredible hip-hop artist. She is an activist. She is a recent grad. And, I really love the work that she's producing and the messages that she's putting out there. And I think you guys should know her story and please support her. So without further ado, here is another sizzling episode of Fahrenheit TV. After this episode, please be sure to visit our blog to learn more about resources that you could help the LGBT community, as well as the Black Lives Matter movement and other resources to help you and your peers. So please tune in.
Fahrenheit TV.
Hi, Fahrenheit TV. Welcome to another virtual episode. Tonight, I am so beyond excited and humbled to have Queen Merci D with us on our virtual platform. I have been a fan of this queen for a long time, not only of her music, but her swag. She's a humble soul, so kind. And I just love that she's always authentic. I always love that about her. Her energy, anytime I see her, is always like bright, but it's always, just truthful. And I love that about her. So I'm so excited to have her on the show. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, love. Thank you. Oh my God, I'm like blushing.
You should be blushing, girl. You glowing. So Merci, before we begin, learning about your musical journey and, just about your life in general, I just wanted to check in with you. How are you doing?
I am taking everything day by day. I'm finding joy in the little things. I'm finding peace in the little things, which I think is important. I think that this time period in our country and in the world in general is it can be seen as a time of reset and recharge, and that's what I've been utilizing my time for, is just reflecting and taking a break from the world, taking a break from social media, taking a break from being in constant contact with people every day, and really thinking about what peace looks like for me. So that's what this time has looked like for me.
I'm so happy to hear that. Like I was telling you earlier, this is a lot. It's overwhelming, all the emotions that's going on right now, especially for, Black people. So it makes me happy to hear that you're finding peace and that you're finding moments of joy and also solitude. I think oftentimes, solitude could be looked upon as a bad thing, but it's very important for, like you said, for us to reset and, just kind of think and just kind of clear our way from, all of the things, the madness that's going on in the world. So that makes me really happy to hear.
Yes.
Yes. And I also wanted to say congratulations to you being a 2020 grad, class of 2020. Woo, woo.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Can I ask you what you got your degree in and how does it feel?
I got a degree in my Bachelor's of the Arts in Creative Writing and Film. So I'm really ecstatic about that. It feels relieving, but it also feels weird for me because I'm used to doing things not on my own time, as far as, learning and reading and writing. Like I'm used to that being like a schedule type situation. But now I'm like on my own and I'm like, okay, there is joy.
Yeah.
There is joy in writing. Like I'm finding that joy. Like I'm getting back to that joyful place.
Yes.
To, having like a very like structured academic, way of thinking and being.
Oh yeah. I mean, and it's not your fault because I remember that took me a while to transition out of that when I finished school myself. Because I mean, it's been over 12 years of us just being, just used to that ritual. But was it challenging at all, getting your degree while surviving and living through a pandemic? I mean, like when I thought, like I used to work in Cambridge and I saw all the students like at, Harvard, MIT going nuts, and I was like, oh my God, like if I was in school right now, I don't even know how I would focus. So how did you do that? Like, congratulations on both ends of that.
Thank you. So for me, okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of background, a little bit of context. My last 2 years of undergrad, I was going back and forth every weekend. I was going back and forth home to Boston. I went to school in Amherst.
Wow. That's a lot of traveling.
Yes. So I was coming back home to Boston every weekend to work. And this particular weekend, the weekend of March 12th, I will never forget it because that was the last time I really been like out. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go home. I'm going to get my hair and nails done. I'm going to shoot this interview for my thesis film. And, I'll be good.
Yeah.
Like, I will feel good. I'll feel pretty. I'll feel like the doll, like, and I'll be able to shoot this interview and,
Yeah.
So I came home that weekend. I think it was that Thursday that I got my hair done and my nails done. And then literally the next day is when everything kind of hit the fan and we were on lockdown. So I was home for a little bit, but then my brother took me back to school to like gather up all my things. And I was officially, off campus working on a film remotely.
Yeah.
It's definitely challenging, especially with a limited budget. I think that I wasn't too pressed about being away from campus, but I was pressed about, you know, the festivities, the graduation,
Oh
the screening
yeah.
of my film, everything like that was kind of a letdown for me. I was kind of sad, but I
Hmm.
think, you know, there's a reason for everything.
Yeah.
So just
I'm
try to.
glad that you still, you know, you have an optimistic perspective about it, because it, you know, I was feeling so bad for like 22. I was like, man, like this is the moment when, you know, they deserve all these things. I remember that stuff, but I'm glad that you're still able to find joy with that. And I mean, this will be historic. Like when you tell your future grandkids about this and nieces and nephews, you'll be like, listen, this queen survived a pandemic and
Period.
got her degree. Okay?
Right,
That's
exactly.
it. Amen.
Right.
So congratulations to you. I'm so proud
Thank
of
you
you.
so much.
Yeah, so now we're just gonna kind of transition into learning about how Merci D was born, right? So before we get right into your music, I wanted to kind of, you know, throw it back and like kind of understand what, you know, inspired you to get into music in the first place. Were there any artists that are living or an ancestor that, you know, inspired you to be like, man, I want to be like her or him on stage?
So my top four musical influences, or as far as rap goes,
Mm-hmm.
would be the Notorious B.I.G., Slick Rick, and Nicki Minaj. And my fourth one, I'll probably say my dad will be in the fourth place. My dad is very into hip hop history. He's very into music history in general.
Mm-hmm.
He knows like random quirky facts and stuff like that. I've always loved music as a kid. Like I grew up in the church, so everything was and I went to the church. I'm a part of the Church of God in Christ. So
Mm-hmm.
everything's very musical. Everything's very theatrical. You have the liturgical dancers, you have the choir, and without a doubt, you know that they're going to be the main two facets besides the sermon and the offering every
Mm-hmm.
Sunday. So that was always a part of my upbringing and my history. Rap came into play when I heard Young B, who now goes by Bianca Barney, from Harlem. I heard her Chicken Noodle Soup.
Oh yes. Oh man,
Right.
that
And I just
that
started
was
writing a
everything.
rap. Right. I started writing a rap to that, but I used different snacks. So I said Oreo cookies. And I just like went on with that with a milk on the side. And I just,
Yes.
you know, I was just kind of like BSing it because I was like, this is cool. I like this, whatever this is.
Yeah, it's
And
fun.
then I came across this force called Nicki Minaj.
Woo!
And
Queen.
it's interesting because I came across her music via LimeWire.
Ooh, you throwing it back. For the
Right.
kids that don't know what LimeWire is, I'll put a little discretion on the bottom of the screen for you. But it was it before Spotify and Apple Music and
It
all
was an
that stuff.
era. It was an
Yes.
era for sure. And I came across her there, and there was a file up there of hers, and I think it was for Still I Rise, and it had her name spelled Nikki. And I'm telling people, it's not Nicki, it is Nikki, because I know, because I downloaded her song from LimeWire. Come to find out, I'm like, oh, it's actually CKI.
Yeah.
But yes, that's when I really fell in love with rap. I was like, there was something about Nicki's music and her conviction in her lyricism that touched me in a way that gospel touched me as a kid. And it took me to a place where, you know, where gospel hymnals took me, gospel hymns. So that's when I really fell in love with music, when I really fell in love with rap. And I was like doing little things here and there, you know, playing with things. And I started taking music more seriously when I was in college. I was like, I have the resources, so now I'm going to just get in the studio and, you know, do my video.
Especially going to a creative college. I mean, you might as well. Hampshire is where it's at. I remember trying to take so many classes at Hampshire. It was so hard, but that's a great school to go to, and they do have those resources.
It's great for interdisciplinary studies. So I tell anybody, like, if you're unsure, like, go to a liberal arts school, go to an institution that will allow you to study what you want to study. Don't ever box yourself in. So in that, you know, in terms of that, I definitely applaud that institution.
Well, I will have to say that it makes so much sense to hear some of your influences, because when you say Slick Rick, you say Notorious B.I.G., also known as Biggie to most of us, and Nicki Minaj, and your dad. I mean, it makes so much sense because when I hear your music, right, I hear the rawness of like B.I.G. and you know, and then the fun playfulness of Nicki Minaj and Slick Rick. So it's just like it makes so much sense that you took all of those influences and then you made it your own, because your music just, it speaks out like that. It's fun, it's in your face, it's bold, it's unapologetic, and I love that. It's like that attitude. Once I hear that beat, I'm like, nobody can tell me nothing, you know. So I'm so glad that you took that in and you deliver. You always deliver. And then like learning a little bit more about like, you know, like how, you know, it started from the church, right? Like it makes so much sense that you have that automatic performance, you know, like alter ego in you, because I recall meeting you for the first time at a ball event. It was when Boston Glass had a ball event, I think like 2 years ago. And I didn't know who you were, but you came in that room like you paid for everything there. Like you came in that room like you owned it. They said the category. Yes.
That was actually one of, like, that was not my most confident, you know, era in life so far. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, you fooled me, because like you came in that room like you were Nicki Minaj's, you know, sister. Like you came in there like, all right, everybody, I've arrived, you know, but humbly, right? Came in there, and then they said whatever category, which I don't remember what it was.
I think it was realness. And it's funny because they had called for realness and I didn't even know what realness was really, but I just went up there and I was real. And I tied my shirt up in the front and I said, listen, this is realness.
Exactly. And that's what I love about you, again, like that you've always been unapologetic, you've always been yourself. And like from that moment on, I was like, man, she is so fierce. Like you just slayed on that, like on that category. I think you did another category too, but I was like, man, I have to say something to her, because that was like my first year kind of learning more about like ballroom culture and all of that. So, you know, when I think about your music, did ballroom culture also kind of influence it a little bit?
I would say that ballroom culture influenced my attitude and my way of thinking. I wouldn't say that ballroom has directly influenced my music, because a lot of my music is traditional hip hop.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important to note, because there are a lot of artists in ballroom, rap artists, hip hop artists. And I think that should be noted, because a lot of people tend to like group people in. Like if you're in ballroom, then that's automatically the type of music that you make. Or if you are a rapper who happens to be Black, queer, and or trans, then you automatically make you have this particular sound. So yeah, I wouldn't say ballroom directly influenced my music choice or my choice of genre, but I would say my attitude and my way of thinking.
And I'm glad that you cleared that up, because even when I think of like, you know, big musical influences like Big Frida and stuff, you know, people could have listened to her music and be like, oh no, that's just ballroom, but no, it's hip hop. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm glad that you cleared that up. So now I'm thinking about, okay, right? So you've been on the stage, you've done some ballroom stuff, you're in school, you're starting to write a little bit more, taking it more seriously. And then last year, I believe, you decide to drop your first mixtape called Redline. How can you talk a little bit about that process? Because I love that mixtape. Like some of my favorite songs are 617, The Vault, and then I like Wine Up. Is it called Wine Up? Wine Up. I love that song. It gets me so amped. I can't even tell you. I was in my apartment. I'm glad I live alone, because you should have saw the things I was doing. I was like I was in a music video or something. But
thank you.
I really love that album. So can you talk a little bit about like creating that album and kind of what messages you wanted to convey to your audience?
Creating Redline was interesting because briefly before that, I had released a project in my rap group Blem with my two sisters, Sakai and Daiki, aka Key. So I was very used to working together. I was used to working, you know, in a collaborative type process. Typically when I would go in the studio for Redline, you know, it was lonely a lot of the times, but I felt like it was a mission. I felt like I was on a mission. I had a job to be done. Like the studio was my office. That was my cubicle. And it was interesting writing, like a lot of my writing process for Redline was done on like receipt papers from my past jobs. A lot of it was done on like different napkins from me just being out and about. Because I'm an around the way girl. So like I'm at the pizza shop and like something comes in my mind, like I have to take the time and write it, because if not, I'll forget it.
Yeah,
And I'm
I
the
feel
type of
you.
girl, like, I'm just gonna handle my business and I'm gonna do it wherever. So I was working at this candy shop and I was taking little pieces of paper and writing my rhymes that was about to come out on June 1st
Yes.
last year. I was writing my rhymes on that because I was like, I need to make my money to be able to put this out. And I need, I need content. So, and I can't
Yeah.
forget it. So a lot of my writing process, and I hope that that is conveyed through the music, is raw, because, the process was raw. A lot of the delivery is raw because the process is raw. The process was real.
And I love that. And I love, because, creativity can hit you at any moment. And sometimes you will forget. That happens to me too. And I'm like, no, what was that idea? So I like that you took it the old school way. Like, let me just get this candy wrapper and write what I got to say. That's it. Happy anniversary, by the way, on the album.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Chop your brains up, I'm throwing you in the...
This year, you did release WWE, which I love. I love the album, and I also love the play on words, right? Because when you think of WWE, you think of wrestling. But in a way, like this, this album, it's like, as wrestling is, like, it's raw. It's like, in your face or whatever, it's the same way. And, water, weed, and estrogen is so dope. I already told you all the tracks that I really love. So can you talk a little bit about, like, transitioning into, like, writing this album for this year, and, what made it different from Redline?
So what makes WWE different than Redline? The main thing is that on Redline, I felt like I had something to prove. It was my first summer home transition as a Black transgender woman. It was my first time in the city of Boston home. And, doing work, declaring myself as an artist, declaring myself as a musician, as a rapper, as a performer. And I felt like I had a lot to prove for the people back home. And WWE was kind of like, I'm here now. Nice. I got that, like, the check has been cashed. Like, I'm on the front of a local newspaper. People know my name. My music has reached people. Do I have the largest following? No, but I do have people that rock with me. And I know that now, and that's fact, and no one can disrupt that.
And it's growing. It's growing.
Right. So Water, Weed, and Estrogen for me was like, it was that sophomore piece. It was like, okay, like, I'm about to graduate now. So I'm going to just, like, give y'all something right before I graduate. And it's going to be kind of like an ode to everyone that is transitioning or graduating in life in general. Anyone who's, like, going to a new position in life, a new plateau per se. So that's what Water, Weed, and Estrogen was for me. I also wanted to, bring it back and go over, like, do some freestyles over some beats.
Yeah, I love that.
Some classic beats. So that's really what I love about WWE. It was like, it's original, but I'm letting you know that I'm still that raw and uncut girl.
Yes. So, and I'm glad that you did, because it delivered. You know what I mean? It really did. And even when you're talking about, freestyling over some classic beats, one of my favorite ones on WWE is R.I.P., because you do it over the Biggie track. And I love that song, because to me, I feel like, there's so many messages, right? It's like 4 minutes of just, like, history in my eyes. It's like 4 minutes of history, revolution. You talk about resilience, you talk about visibility, empowerment, and even you talk about Black death. So it's a lot to take in. But then when you look at it, you're like, okay, let me analyze this piece. What is she trying to say to me? So I kind of wanted to ask you if that song had anything to do with you talking about your experience as a Black trans woman.
Yes. So R.I.P. Long Kiss Goodnight remix, or freestyle rather, for me, it was about honoring my experience. I feel that often in the media, and the gaze that is placed upon Black transgender women is often one that comes after being brutalized publicly, being humiliated, being laughed at, being tormented, being murdered, being slaughtered. All these various atrocities that are placed upon us. And R.I.P. Long Kiss Goodnight was me kind of reclaiming the narrative. It was me shifting the narrative, and it was me honoring my experience. It was me uplifting my experience, and folks who have similar experiences to mine. So for the chorus, like it goes, I heard you're gonna die.
It's not on your side when you do the opposite of right. I heard you're gonna die, so say your last prayer tonight.
That was like, trouble me no more.
Mm-hmm.
Trouble me no more. We're not standing for it. It is a new day and a new age. We are no longer explaining our humanity. We're not justifying our humanity. We're letting you know that we are humans that just so happen to be Black, femme, queer, and trans, and you're going to deal with it. Period.
Period. I love it. And you know, I want to take a minute to pause a little bit just so the audience could really soak that in. Because, you know, right now we're all on our phones. We're seeing social media give us, you know, every day a new story we're learning about in terms of like the Black Lives Matter movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing people protest all around the world against police brutality and white supremacy. But oftentimes, and many times, a lot of Black lives we don't know about are queer people, are trans people, even Black women, you know, like we don't know about these people. And it saddens me severely because it seems like sometimes in the movement, although I know that's not, you know, the intention of the people who made up the movement, one who is a queer woman herself, is to leave out certain Black people, right? And I think sometimes we leave out certain Black people because they're uncomfortable with their lifestyle, they like to say, their lifestyle or the way they live. And so I kind of wanted to hear from you, you know, why else do you think that is? And what do you think we could do to make sure that all Black lives are visible and that we're fighting for all Black lives?
Right. So the first question, why do I think that is? I think that, and you know, I can speak based on not only what I've learned, you know, academically or what I've learned as far as research, but also from my lived political experience. I think that particularly in Black communities, so in the Black community at large, there is a fear of death and dying. And I think often for a lot of Black folks who do not happen to be queer or trans, or anywhere on the spectrum, you know, you always hear about how there was, you know, that uncle or aunt that lived like 3 decades ago, and you know, everyone tolerated them and they wore the leather hot pants and the go-go boots. But then, you know, 4 decades forward, no one knows what transness is. No one knows what queer identity is. No one knows what femininity is. And I think that ultimately it is a fear of death and dying. In my experience, when I first announced to my parents that I was transitioning, a lot of it was, I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you to, you know, I don't want someone to do something to you because then that means that I'm going to have to get something done to them, quite frankly. And that wasn't right. And that wasn't effectively communicated until, because I took both of my parents to therapy, and I'm grateful I had therapy as a resource.
That's beautiful.
I took each of them to therapy and sat down because I wanted us to be able to have a facilitated and mediated conversation. And it was expressed to me that, you know, essentially it was a fear of death, a fear of losing me. And I think that Black folks have generations upon generations of that constant fear. And that fear, you know, sometimes it looks like me, you know, because I'm going against the grain and I'm living my life out loud, and people do understand and people do know that living like me and living on the queer spectrum and living as a transgender person can result in death. That is a reality. And I think a lot of people have fear around that. The way they act on that fear is not correct. I hate the term politically correct because to me it's just not humane.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's the one. That's like the fear of death and dying, and then also the fear of what you don't know.
Yep. The unknown.
Right. There's a lot of people that fear what they don't know. And I think that that's also something that we need to dismantle. I think we need to start thinking as you know, Black folks in general, we need to start rethinking who we invest our time and energy into. We need to start rethinking different, you know, we need to start rethinking the structures of what we use as education or what we use as learning or what we use as reading. And we need to really study.
Yes.
We need to really read, and we need to really go into the history books and see what, you know, was cut out years ago. Because being Black and trans is nothing new.
Yeah.
Just because it may be new in my household, that doesn't mean that it's new. There were people who were enslaved, and they were very much so queer and trans. And there are historical records to prove that. So I think that we need to recenter. We need to realign because, you know, and this sounds it sounds kind of pessimistic, but it's the truth as I know it. Black people are not going to get free until we can all come together to fight what needs to be fought or who needs to be fought. But it definitely is not, it's not Black trans people. Black trans people, all we want to do is live. We just want to live, and we just want peace. That's all.
Yep. I think you said that beautifully. Amen to that. And, you know, some of the points that you just said, you know, in terms of people having a fear, especially of the unknown, and, you know, having a fear of death. I think media really, you know, portrays into people's depictions of, you know, what they think trans people look like or act like or whatever. And even like you were saying before, you know, normally if we see a trans person in film, I could say from like my perspective, like just growing up, it's more of a comedic perspective. You know, we're very familiar with, you know, Black comedians putting dresses on, and, you know, and that's like almost like a rite of passage. And there's so many, you know, different films that could prove that, like, you know, Shanae or like Mrs. Doubtfire, stuff like that. But also like you said before, trans people have been, you know, been here forever since the start of time, especially if you think about it on a film perspective. On a film perspective, they have been, but it is if you're not really looking, you know what I mean? Or their stories are being told through the white gaze, through a heterosexual, you know, perspective of what they think the trans experience is. And so I say all of that to say, because you said it beautifully, but, you know, I think about you as, you know, a recent grad who got her degree in, you know, in writing and film. What do you want to see more of in terms of, like, you know, in fashion and film and history books and all that for trans people? What would you like to see more of?
For me, and I think about this often because I used to be a person that was, you know, I was heavy on visibility. Visibility was so important to me. And sometimes, you know, and I think what, you know, the lockdown and the social distancing has offered me is that time to really reflect and rethink and reprocess. And since doing the rethinking, I've come to the conclusion that I want to, you know, I don't only want to see, it's not only about what I want to see or who I want to see, but it's about who I want really conducting the business, who I want really writing the stories, because the foundation for everything that we see starts with the word.
Yes.
The foundation is the thought, and the thought always has to be written out or spoken and verbalized. So I want to see more Black trans folks and queer folks at the writing table.
Yes.
I want to see, because, and the reason that we don't see ourselves as much as we would like to is because we've had a lack of folks at the table. Yes. We've had a lack of folks in the rooms really speaking life, really speaking the names, really speaking what it is to have our lived political experiences. I believe that there is a new day on the horizon. I think that there is a new fire that is lit up under the feet of folks, and I'm excited about that. And
Mhm.
I want to make sure that people are able to focus on intention,
Yes.
and really be specific with intention. So yeah, I definitely, and I want to be in the writers' room. I have
Oh
to be in the.
yes. You
I feel
have
like
to
it's
be.
meant to be. Right,
Yeah.
because I don't only want to see death. I don't want to see Black trans death. I don't
Mhm.
want to only have to rely on polls. I don't want to only have to rely on, various online influencers. I love T.S. Madison. She's one of my inspirations. I don't want to only have to rely on her. I
Mhm.
want there to be a plethora of the gurus. I want there to be a plethora of people from the community and from various identities, various intersections who are, doing the writing, who are speaking, who are at the forefront, who people are listening to, and who are sharing stories. I think that's important.
Yeah, amen to that. And I think, you know what I'm, if there's not a table there, then create your own table, because
Period.
I mean, Black trans people have been like they make culture. They make culture, and I think people don't give them enough credit at all because they're, uncomfortable with whatever fears and homophobias and transphobias that they have. That's their own problem. But Black trans people have always been here, and they're here to stay and
Period.
grow and tell you their stories from their own perspective. So that's so beautiful to hear. And June is Pride Month, right? And so it's very different because of like COVID-19. I miss going to like the parades and all the events and stuff. But nonetheless, it's still very important for us to to recognize. And one of the things that I think a lot of people don't recognize is that trans people were the ones who started the movement. You know what I mean? Like they were the ones who started Marsha and Sylvia and all these other people. There's documentaries now and books. There's been books and stuff that you could read upon this. You got the time, everybody. Please read upon it. But,
Okay.
yeah. But they were at the forefront. They are the pioneers of the whole movement. But as I'm learning from like my queer friends is that like there's even some some hostility even within the queer community as well. It mostly seems like it's like gay men, against trans people, and there's still some battles they need to face. So I wanted to ask you, like, what do you want to see more within the LGBT community in terms of really moving as a whole together, and what would you want allies to do as well? Allies to do as well.
From the queer community, I want to see more respect placed upon the names of the Black trans folks who have worked tirelessly to mobilize and to reshape what our futures look like.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, I'm going to do a little shameless plug, but I think that folks should check out the Trans Emergency Fund, the Transgender Emergency Fund out of Massachusetts. I believe that it is an initiative or program that is led by Chastity Bowick. I definitely encourage folks to check that out because at the foundation is Black trans people, period.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely want to see more respect placed. I also want folks to create within their communities. I think you had mentioned earlier, Farah, about basically using what you have and creating your own table.
Yes.
I don't want to see queer and trans people relying so heavily on the outside world. We have everything that we need to get to where we want to get to. To get to a place of liberation, to get to a place of peace, we have the things that we need. As far as entertainment, we are entertainers.
Yes.
As far as revolutionaries, many of us are revolutionaries.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not going to be everyone's duty. I don't believe it's everyone's job to be on the front lines. Everyone is not built for the front lines.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who are built for backstage.
Yes.
There are people who are built for behind the scenes. And that is just as important as the girls who are popular or as the folks who have platforms. I think it's important that we remember that everyone has a role to play and that no one should ever feel like they're not important enough to work for the full and total liberation of Black, queer, and trans people.
Yes.
I think that that's something important, and that's something that we need to keep in mind as we move towards liberation.
Yes. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And so, I don't even know I mean, I think you just closed it down. You just like seriously, that was beautiful. And I hope everybody hears that there's many forms of activism that you can engage in. You know what I mean? I love that you said the people backstage are just as important as the people on stage. You know what I mean? So I think that's really beautiful to hear. So, now I'm kind of transitioning back into your music, Merci, right? You got swag, like that's admirable, that's original, that's you, right? Like I told you, ever since I saw you slay on that ballroom stage, I was like, wow. But like I know that like, for all of us to kind of find that confidence, it could be a little challenging. So I want to ask you, what advice would you give to anybody who's kind of struggling to find that confidence, to kind of find their voice? Because I know, like, quarantine, like, I always see these posts like, oh, like, this is the time to work on yourself. And I feel like that could also be overwhelming to some people if you don't know where to start. So what would your advice be to people?
My advice would be, well, one, to make a vision board, or make a few vision boards. Whatever your vision is, whatever your passion is, make a vision board. I started vision boarding or collaging, I think, in 2018. I made it my duty to have a vision board kind of event or vision board kickback for me and my girls every like New Year's Eve. Just because I feel like it's important for somebody to really know what it is that they want and work towards it. And then the second thing I would say, don't be afraid to see yourself. Like truly see yourself. In my bedroom where I'm at right now, there's a mirror on like every corner slash like every wall of the room. And my purpose for that is I have to be able to see myself, and I have to be able to process any feelings I have when I see myself. There are days where I wake up and I don't feel like the prettiest girl in the world. There are days when I wake up and dysphoria eats me up, but I push through because I have no choice but to see myself. I think it's very important for people to get to that place, however the process looks for you. It may not look like having a mirror on each wall of your room. It may look like you taking time for yourself and communicating with close loved ones that you can't be, you can't be there for them in this moment because you're working on yourself. It may look like that. Just recentering self. I think it's important. We cannot move towards liberation if we're burnt out.
Yes. Amen. Amen. That's beautiful. And I'm glad that you told the audience that, because it doesn't matter what you identify as. We all struggle. We all go through the ups and downs of life. So it's really important to have that message and to see yourself, you know what I mean? And to be comfortable with yourself and to honor yourself, because we all have greatness, I think, within our DNA. So that's really beautiful to hear. So Merci, how can, I want to ask you a few questions. Okay, so I know the interview's coming to an end, but like, how have you been, any summer plans that you have for, because we're still in quarantine, so do you have any summer plans? And then I'll ask the last question.
My summer plans, I want to get out more. I have not been out a lot, but it's really starting to eat me up. So I'm planning on getting out more, kind of like conquering that fear. I want to like get out on the beach more. I want to tan a little bit. I want to go on more walks. I'm thinking about maybe doing like personal picnics.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, because I've never really been a picnic person. Like, I never really been one to really like sprawl out in the grass. But now I'm longing for a picnic. So I think, my plans are very much like the regular summer plans, but just like with precaution. So like with my mask and with my gloves and things like that.
Yes. Everybody, please continue to wear your mask. That's beautiful to hear. I love that you're going to do that. I hope to like walk by you 6 feet away like, hey, Merci, how's that picnic going? That's awesome. So Merci, how can we support you? I'm not sure if you have any new music that you're going to be working on. I love your YouTube channel and your makeup tutorials, as well as you breaking down the songs. So I would really recommend the audience to check out her YouTube channel, because if you really want to learn about the stories behind the songs, There you go. She delivers, and even the graphics is awesome. And then the makeup. I mean, you need to teach me. You need to teach me, Queen, please. Oh, I've been struggling. But anyways, do you have any plans to make more content like that, or any music coming out?
Yes. So I literally being in the house, I think about something every day. But right now, I am back on YouTube. I am on YouTube under Have Mercy TV. It's MERCI TV. And yes, I do a various amount of things there. I do the Merciless Breakdown, which is a breakdown, or I do Merciless Breakdown, which is a series where I break down the lyrics to different songs of mine. And then I also am on there and I do, makeup looks or whatever. Whatever comes to mind, I don't like to box myself in. I am still doing music. I'm currently writing with my group Blam, and I'm really excited to be like back in the lab, so to speak, with them. I am also still writing. I'm always writing, really.
Yeah.
I've revisited an old script of mine recently. So I've been like script writing, various creative writing things. Also, you can find me on Instagram at Lord Have Mercy, LAWD, Have Mercy with an I, not a Y. And there you'll find like everything that I'm involved in. I am currently, I have an active medical fund that I am raising money for my medical transition to progress things. And, it's progressing. Like I'm ecstatic at the level that I'm at right now. So I'm really happy about that. All the information can be found on my Instagram. I'm also on Twitter at Lord Have Mercy, but with 3 I's at the end, not just one. And yeah, you can click that link and just get into any and everything that I'm involved in. My SoundCloud is Merci D. Yeah, you can stream She, you can, get into She.
Yes, get into She.
I'm out there on the interwebs, darling.
Yes, and donate, support, stream the music, all of that. That's really, really
also
important.
There are some other orgs who I definitely want to shout out. I think it's very important that I make space for them. For the girls, it's FORTHE. Girls is spelled GWORL, either Z or S, I'm not sure. There's also the Black Trans Femmes in the Arts Collective. You can follow them on Instagram at BTFA Collective. There are so many orgs that people probably, because I didn't even know all the orgs that were really in place and actively doing work nonstop, beyond just Black Lives Matter, beyond just the movements of right now. They've been doing this work. So please take out the time and go check out those orgs, and please make it a duty and make it a habit to invest in Black, queer, and trans folks. Please make it a habit, please.
Yes, amen. Not just for Pride Month, not when you just seen an episode of Pose and you feel like you want to, support people. Support them every day. These are our society members. These are our culture creators. These are our people, our kings and our queens. So thank you. Thank you so much, Mercy. That was so beautiful. Now we're going to all go stream, WWE and listen to it and, flip our hair or whatever. I love it. So, okay, last bonus question, and then I swear I'll leave you alone because I know you got queen things to do. Okay, so I know you love Nicki Minaj. So if you were to go on tour, say she called you up, she's like, yo, Mercy, we're about to go on tour in 2025 because I don't know when we're going to be out of quarantine. So let's just say 2025. And she's like, but we need one more artist to join us. Who would that artist be?
So if it was me and Nikki, who was the third?
You and Nikki, yeah. And she asked you. She asked your advice. Like, yo, I don't know who else to join us on this Queens tour. Who should we invite?
Ooh. I like that. That's never been asked. I'm trying to see what a good show curation would actually give.
Yeah. I know you got that producer mind as well. You're creative. You're an artist. So that's why she asked you, because she's like, girl, I got other things to do. You know what I mean? So.
I would say Medino Green from Boston.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes. Support. And I love, I forgot to mention this, but I love how you rep Boston so hard. Like, it makes me
I
feel
have to. This
seen.
is home.
Oh, I love it because, you know, the other Boston, like, you know, the black and brown people, we're never seen or we're never really heard. You know, it's like, oh, yeah, I think there's like a sprinkle of them in there. But we're here. We're here.
We
so
are
thank
here,
you.
and we're living and thriving, honey. We're not
Yes.
suffering anymore. We're thriving. Period.
Yes. Period.
Yeah. I would definitely say Medino Green. I think Medino Green, me and Nikki on a tour, I think that would really turn it. No shade. I think that would turn it. I like Medino's music a lot.
Yes.
I think that would be cute. That would be cute. And each of us have our own different flair, our own different style. I think that would be a good show.
It'll be a diverse show, and let me just say that I will take out my credit card in an instant to make sure that I'm in front row, okay? So that would be awesome, period. Well, thank you so much, Merci D, for sharing your story with us, for advocating for our community, for being a revolutionary star that you are. I wish you continued blessings upon your journey in music, your journey in this beautiful life. And thank you for being a true leader, because we really need more leaders like you in our community that are speaking about the unjust things that are happening in our world. And also just, you know, just celebrating Black joy. I think that itself is revolutionary. So thank you for just being you and being open to this interview. I'm so beyond thankful.
Thank you, Farah. I'm so happy to have, you know, spoken with you. And I'm glad that we could have, you know, I'm glad that we had the conversation we had. I think it's important. So Thank you so much. I'm honored.
More than welcome, Queen. I can't wait to like post this. So everybody, please make sure I'm going to put all of the information on the bottom and as well as our blog. Please support Merci D. She deserves your support. She deserves your love. Pray for her. Keep her in positive spirits and positive energy, as well as our whole community. And we'll see you on our next virtual episode. Bye.
Fahrenheit TV.
Wasn't that an incredible interview with Merci D? So much respect for that queen. Thank you, Merci D, for sharing your story with us, for sharing your wisdom, your greatness, for, you know, empowering us all to, you know, always support the LGBT community, to always seek out education, you know, to have an open mind, to have respect. I think that's where we really need to start off first and recognize, you know, that our leaders in this world come from all shapes and sizes, all genders, sexualities, identities, nationalities. You know, we're all incredible in our own way. So thank you so much for sharing your greatness with us and your work. Guys, please check out her music on Spotify, on SoundCloud. If you are a hip-hop fan, you're going to love it, especially her covers. I mean, they make me feel so empowered. One of the things that Merci D said that I connected with the most is that, you know, quarantine has allowed us to kind of stop, right, and pause with everything that's going on in the world and reflect and see, you know, with our own eyes, the ongoing struggles that, you know, people of color have been talking about for a long time, that marginalized groups have been talking about for a long time. And really not only listen, but, you know, take action to making those, you know, injustices that they're experiencing every day right. You know what I mean? Making sure that we are actually, you know, going by what, you know, the threat of this country is, you know, justice for all, that we are actually doing justice for all. It's been a very emotional and overwhelming, you know, time in our lives. But I hope that during this interview you was able to listen to her story, that you're able to know how to support the LGBT community, that you're able to understand how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement and social justice, you know, organizations that are fighting for us every day, not just when they're in the mainstream. And that you take action. And, you know, activism looks different for everybody. So however you decide to take action, I hope that no matter what you are listening, that you're educating, that you are, you know, educating yourself and your peers, that you're having these, you know, conversations with your peers, and that you truly are, you know, an ally for, you know, social justice. But with all that being said, all of the organizations that Merci D was so kind to share with us will be on our blog. So you could, you know, click directly on those links and donate your time, volunteer or however you want to participate. We also have some resources on mental health because, again, mental health is so, so important for all of us, especially, I would say, for my Black kings and queens. I really want to make sure that you are taking care of yourself because, when we go on social media every day, it's like our daily newspaper, and we see all these videos and these footages of Black pain, and, that hurts so badly. And so I want to make sure that you're taking the time, like Merci D did, to unplug, to take care of your mind, body, and spirit, and so that way you could be a stronger soldier. So we'll also have resources like that on our blog, as well as some other resources, just to give you some moments of Black joy, to give you some some things that could help you or a friend. So please, please, please visit our blog for all of those links and resources. I want to thank Merci D for being so kind again, for sharing your story and your greatness and wisdom with us. And after this, if you guys are interested, I had the pleasure of attending my first 2020 protest and march. And I did a little video blog about, my experiences. So if you want to watch that, it's after, the PSAs and the little commercials you'll see after this. So please stay tuned. But nonetheless, I wish you peace. I wish you great health and prosperity, my kings and queens, and know that I love you. I'll see you next month with a brand new episode. Thank you so much for supporting us. Bye.
Fahrenheit TV.
Today, I actually went to my first protest of this year for Black Lives Matter. I've been to protests a few years ago for Black Lives Matter, specifically when Philandro was murdered, and that was the last video I actually watched because I can't watch any more of those videos, but I'm fully aware of what's going on in the world, from clips, from interviews, from everything that's going on. But these past few weeks, I've waited out on going to protests because of the fear of catching COVID-19. As we all know, COVID-19 is still very real. There's no cure yet. It really bothers me when I go out that I don't see people wearing masks and stuff, and so it's very concerning. And so I've been kind of just pushing off going to these protests because I was scared of that, because I was also scared of rubber bullets. When I went to protest back in 2017, yeah, you could be tear gas, but rubber bullets wasn't a thing. So it's kind of crazy that now, we're trying to fight, police brutality and talking about defunding the police, which I think we should. And yet they're getting more armed with stuff to take away our lives even more. I go to today's protest because, for the past few weeks I've been really just focusing on my mental health and focusing on, trying to stay at peace, whether that's engaging in art therapy, whether that's, connecting with my friends and family and my peers and just talking about what's going on, letting that anger and that frustration out. But I felt like I needed more. I felt like I've been in the house. We all been in the house for so long, and I needed to just be out there and just feel that energy and just scream from the top of my lungs that Black Lives Matter. So today I went to the protest, and it was everything I needed and more. It was beautiful. It was, organized by Violence in Boston, the organization, as well as Black Lives Matter, the chapter here in Boston, and it was excellent. Led by the queen, Monica. I have so much respect for her. I've been able to, you know, see her over the years continually be a pioneer for change, continuing to be a great leader, a community leader. And so it was amazing to see her out there still fighting, still protesting, still leading us, you know, and still encouraging us to, you know, speak up even when we're tired, even when it was super hot. I think it was like 90 degrees today. But, you know, we're lucky that we get to speak, that we get to, you know, sweat and all these things, because the people that have been taken away from us are our ancestors, our brothers and sisters, many of them that we don't know about because, again, you know, police brutality is still pretty hidden. You know, it's because of social media that people have been able to see these murders. But there's so many names that we still don't know. So today, even if we were hot, even if we were tired or whatever, we march on behalf of those ancestors because they no longer are here with us physically. However, their lives matter, and so we will continue to fight. Yeah, it felt really good to be out there. I'm going to share some clips of some of the messages that was, you know, shared with us today to hopefully encourage you to continue the fight. And as you know, activism looks very different. There's various ways to be an activist. So you don't always have to be out there in the front lines. You could, you know, be doing a lot of different things. Especially for Black people, I say always, you know, focus on your mental health first, because you can't be a strong soldier if you're not well, mind, body, and spirit-wise. Here are some clips that they share with us today, and I hope that you'll get some messages from them.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. You know that heat you feeling? That tiredness you feel?
Right.
Imagine Eric Gardner laying on that hot-ass ground.
Right.
Imagine George Floyd laying on that cement with that officer's kneecap in his neck. We hot, but we still here. Make some noise for still being here to fight. Listen, this morning, Governor Charlie Baker made an announcement that he was giving more money to the police department. What y'all think about that? Not only is it disrespectful, but it goes to show how much they don't value Black lives. Because when I say Black lives and your response is all lives, it's like no shit. All lives have always mattered, but Black lives have not. And that is a problem. Right?
Yes.
Y'all make some noise.
Yes.
So listen, you're probably wondering who's standing here with me. To my right is Angelique Kurth. She is the wife of Andrew Kurth. Andrew Kurth died in the back of a police car in New York. He said 70 times he couldn't breathe in 17 minutes, and he was dead before he got to the police station. Angie drove here this morning from New York with her baby. How many of y'all are familiar with Eric Gardner? So Eric Gardner's son, raise your hand. Where you at, Eric? Right. Eric Gardner's son came here last night. I was tired as hell, but they were committed to coming here to helping us fight this fight. And I know a lot of people's critique is, well, it don't happen in Boston. We so progressive. Get familiar with Terrence Coleman. Say his name! Terrence Coleman! Say his name! Terrence Coleman! Say his name! Terrence Coleman! Terrence Coleman was killed by the Boston Police Department in front of his mother. They knew he had mental health disease. They were familiar with him and shot him dead in front of his whole family. Burrell Ramsey. Say his name! Burrell Ramsey! Say his name! Burrell Ramsey! Burrell Ramsey was handcuffed, shot by the police, and beaten. The bullet traveled. He's dead. His mother will never be able to see her grandchildren and spend time with her son. Say his name? Yes. Listen, for as much as we have all these national things we can reference, it happens here. We are one incident away from this being a Ferguson. No justice? No peace. No justice? No peace. So we have artist who's going to come, who's going to speak. What we're going to do today is petition Governor Baker. We have demands. Our demands look like defunding the police.
Yeah! Woo! Defund the police! Yeah!
Reinvest money into programming and social justice movements for black and brown kids. Y'all with me?
Yeah!
I want to recognize all the amazing healers in this space right now. You ain't got saved?
Yeah!
We need our young people, y'all. Y'all stay home and critique and talk about what they should have, could have, would have did. But they've been showing up. And they keep showing up. And we're going to keep showing up.
Yeah! Woo!
Let's get it, y'all. Make some noise for black artists who need funding. Make some noise for black artists that need funding, y'all. If you can feel it,
You can speak it!
I'm not selling my tears. My blood is not for sale. My body's not up for auction. Yet there's been a price on our heads. See, we're not cargo. Not Harambe's in a concrete jungle. See, we're not your targets. Not your prizes. Not bargaining chips. Not thugs, looters, or delinquents. Yet we've been the profits you profit on behind your blitzes. See, you pipelined our children from schools into your systems. You emasculated and slaughtered our fathers while overworking and eroticizing our mothers to command our allegiance. But our queens are not your bitches. They will not lay down. See, this is not us biting a hand. This is us being done being told to wait. Done waiting for you to understand. Done listening to your understandings being confronted with misconceptions and being mistaken for misconceptions. See, we understand y'all no more twists than evidence, but we are not being deceived. We are not paranoid. This has been a pool of blood while the country is telling us it's a puddle. But yet we've been distanced, disarmed, and they told we couldn't be in discontent. We've been financially cold-shouldered. This ice is terror, and dead silence. Your police are casted like rods, fishing to reel us in, and you've baited us and served us. It's media scapegoats, because it's just our problem. Because there is no problem. When we're the nagging problem, black on black, there's not enough voting. And have you heard the lyrics in their music? There's not enough parenting, because they're always locked up. It's we, and we're chanting just us, just us, just us. Hands down, don't shoot, because of our ongoing reality, because they keep shooting. It's a part of our lives, and our lives don't matter to the naive. The ones who sit comfortably on our bones, dignity in the Holy Land, justified with soup and law, sitting in two-parent homes, watching CNN and Fox, while our communities rot. They project bias, so the closed-off white folk can be blocked off paying black folk. Wanting order, but never order justice in the center of their towns, and they have the nerve to cry over Bambi, Simba, or Mufasa. Have the audacity to cry over fictional characters that have been our ongoing symbols of using instinct as is, using strength and resilience, yet we are being killed for using our instincts, our cars, and cameras being only gag witnesses because they're the last spots we're seen, because we don't sell dreams. Our hair is not yours to touch, not a part of your research, but you can research your nightmares, because this locked lineage is woven into a warrior spirit that your past anxiously awaits to be unleashed on this present public, and wants to cover up, contain, or won't accept how ignorance is acting like earplugs with privileges. Excuse me. I mean freedom being blindfolded, safety blankets, the veil for the naive, while we've been the broken pieces of this nation's mirror. So together, I hope they're ready to look at their horrific reflection. If you can feel it, you can see it. You sound beautiful. Little louder. Deprivation. We can't breathe. Hands up, don't shoot. Please. I have no weapon. Freeze. All I have is my voice. Chalk lines, caution tape. We hail tabs that won't stop. Too dark, too late. They don't feel safe. Go to college, obtain 2 degrees. Still treated like second-class citizens. No identity, yet check the ethnicity box. Assume labels, single mothers, deadbeat dads, welfare checks, trans lives, gay lives. Do you even have a job? European names like Amanda Gregory guarantees interviews. Looks of disappointment once they see you. We've been lied to. This country isn't ours. Go back home. Practice patriotism. Anger. My stomach aches. It bubbles like warm shaken soda. Let's smile. Hide your pain. College sharks, iron pants, sweet snow, explain. Proper English, urban dictionary, puppets, not people, where minstrel shows. Humans, detained like animals. Jail cells reminiscent of animal cages. Unfair, unequal wages. We have no pride left. We feel dead inside. We just all want to feel. We just all want to breathe. We all just want to be. We all just want to exist. We all just want to be. Live. Feel. Alive. Deprivation. Thank you. Brianna said it best. All y'all with some rich white friends. Some friends with some bank accounts. Some friends that got escrow. Pull up. Pull up. Because understand, it takes money to do this. I'm out here. That means I ain't got no job. I need y'all to pay attention to the backstory. Find you someone to support. Visit violenceinboston.org. We're listing every black and brown business, organization, and movement. Because I need y'all to shake that respectability politics. AKA a 501c3. How do we know our money is going to the right spot? I was doing violence prevention work out of my kitchen off of food stamps. And it was hard to get money because nobody wanted to give it to me because I didn't have them educated gang symbols at the end of my name. Y'all need to know that black folks, we don't wait for the credentials to do the work. We do the work and then we wait for y'all to catch up. We've been talking to the shooters. We in the schools. We waiting for y'all to meet us there. This is your opportunity. If you ever wondered what it felt like to be in a civil rights movement, welcome. We've been in this country. Welcome. It's been a long time coming, and I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. So
Fahrenheit TV.